Ever since I caught up to Bleach, I've been wanting to make a video like this where I talk about every moment that made me fall in love with the anime. I wasn't always a Bleach fan. Just 3 months ago, I was completely ignorant to the fact that the greatest piece of fiction was right in front of me the whole time. And throughout my journey watching the anime, there were so many moments where I was like, wow, like Bleach is really peak. So I wanted to talk about some of those moments that made me fall in love with Bleach and maybe made y'all fall in love with Bleach as well. There's not gonna be any 1000-Year Blood War moments because I was already in love with Bleach by the time that I got to 1000-Year Blood War, but if I had to choose one, I would say the entire Blade is Me episode. Starting with the first arc, everybody told me before I watched Bleach, the first arc is something you're gonna have to endure. It's not good, but just get through it and the rest of Bleach is perfect. And now that I've caught up to Bleach, I can say the first arc wasn't even bad. Everybody was over-exaggerating how bad the first, it wasn't bad, it was good, I liked it. And now that I've caught up to Bleach, I can recognize there was a lot of important foreshadowing in just the first arc alone. The first time I really started realizing like, yo, I like Bleach a lot was the first opening. Asterisk, to this day is still my favorite opening in Bleach, but that's not a moment. The two standout moments in the first arc of Bleach are really when Ichigo fought against the Men of Grande and when Ichigo fought against Renji and Byakuya. The first arc of Bleach was very, I guess, unserious and very joke heavy, and not that I mind it, now looking back at it, when I rewatch those episodes, I'm like, wow, like Bleach, this is before everything got depressing and we got to 1000-Year Blood War. But still, there were a handful of serious moments in that first arc, and the moment that Ichigo fought off against the Men of Grande and when he fought off against Byakuya, those were the two moments where it's like, oh, like this is getting real. If I had to pick one or the other, I would say the fight with Byakuya, because even though Ichigo was progressing extremely quickly, and now that I've caught up to Bleach, I understand why. That first encounter where Byakuya showed off the difference between Ichigo and a real Soul Reaper. And obviously it set up the Soul Society arc, which is my favorite arc in all of Bleach, but I digress. And after the fight with Byakuya and Renji, we get this scene where Urahara is standing over Ichigo in the rain. And once again, now that I've caught up to Bleach, I understand the significance of Urahara being there, and I understand his connection to Ichigo that goes farther back than I could even imagine the first time that I watched that episode. Watching it for the first time, I'm like, oh, like Urahara saved Ichigo, that's cool. But now I realize this was all a part of the giant chess match that Urahara and Aizen were playing throughout the entirety of Bleach, and it's something that I couldn't even completely appreciate when I watched it for the first time, but I still liked it, I still enjoyed it. And during that moment I thought, oh, Byakuya fight, Urahara saving Ichigo, Bleach is getting good. And now that I look back at it, now that I've caught up, I'm like, wow, like that moment is so significant, and I wouldn't know any better if I was watching it for the first time. So I would say that moment is the first time that I can truthfully say, oh, I was getting hooked on Bleach, and I liked it then, and I've grown to appreciate that moment even more as I've watched Bleach. And that's the beauty of Bleach, is you can finish the show, go back and look at some moments and be like, wow, I liked it then, I like it more now. But now we enter the Soul Society arc, and there's so many moments within the Soul Society arc that I can point to and say this made me fall in love with Bleach, because it really is the arc where I fell in love with Bleach. I don't think I've ever mentioned this, maybe I have, probably on live streams. I think Soul Society is one of the greatest arcs that I've ever seen in anime. I would go as far as to say the Soul Society is probably in contention for my favorite arc of all time. But part of me is resisting the urge to just talk about Soul Society for an hour straight, because I wanted to make that its own video. I can't talk about every moment that made me fall in love with the Soul Society arc, because I gotta save that for the Soul Society video. I can point to the obvious moments, the first Bankai, Ichigo versus Byakuya, the plot twist. All of those moments made me appreciate Bleach more and more and more. But there is one moment in the Soul Society arc that sticks out beyond belief. In my opinion, it is my favorite moment in the entire show. All of Bleach, including 1000-Year Blood War. And it has to be the manifestation of Old Man Zangetsu against Kenpachi. You want to talk about moments that I liked at first and then came to appreciate a lot more later? This is Exhibit A. So I was already enthralled to begin with. And once again, the overarching fight had a lot of amazing moments in it to begin with, like the time that we felt Kenpachi's spiritual pressure for the first time. The moment where Kenpachi says, look, you can get a free hit on me, go ahead, take a shot, and Ichigo tries and he doesn't even put a scratch on him. All of these were amazing moments, but no better moment in this fight than the moment that Ichigo goes down and Old Man Zangetsu manifests himself in front of him. And when I saw that, I think that was the first time that I was like, shadowing masterclass by Kubo that I was none the wiser to know of the first time that I watched it. But now that I've caught up to Bleach, I see, wow, like, even they're gonna call this a plot armor moment. Shut up. You better shut up. The first time that I saw Old Man Zangief, given all the context, understanding the fight 100%, it makes it that much better. But when I watched it for the first time blind, I still loved it, and it's still one of the moments that I can point to and say that is when I fell in love with Bleach. Shout out the Soul Society arc, the best arc in Bleach in my opinion. There's so many, you can't go wrong with any arc, but that's the one for me. Now we move on to the moment that made me fall in love with Bleach in the Arrancar arc. The Arrancar arc had a lot to live up to after the Soul Society arc, but I really think it did. The Arrancar arc had some low points. It wasn't adapted perfectly. The pacing was a little bit off at times, but when it hit that high point, when it hit that pinnacle, the climax, oh, it was practically unmatched. To this day, I still think the 3 episodes against Ulquiorra are the best stretch of episodes in all of Bleach, and everything to do with Ulquiorra made me fall in love with Bleach. If you've been keeping up with my Bleach journey, then you know Ulquiorra is one of my favorite characters in all of Bleach, but before I had Ulquiorra, we first had Grimmjow. Let me try to explain this in a way that makes sense. Some of y'all might get it, some of y'all might not. Soul Society, as much as I love it, and even though it is my favorite arc in Bleach, it didn't have that doomsday vibe. You get what I mean? Soul Society, at the end of the day, they're all good people, except maybe Mayuri. But the Arrancars, no, they were straight killers. The Arrancars had this like aura. They have aura. But they really felt like, wow, somebody that I like in the cast might die at the hands of one of these Arrancars. They feel like real deal threats. And all of this peaked when Grimmjow gathered up some Arrancars and said, let's go into the world of the living. The ambiance of Bleach during this entire segment, the nighttime, the setting, the art style, very heavy on the shadows, very sharp corners, the animation, it was all great. The ambiance was dire. It was grim. It felt serious. Oh, it's about to go down. And when Grimmjow arrived and he met with Ichigo for the first time, stabbed Rukia, it confirmed my fears. Somebody might die. And while nobody did die, we had numerous close calls. Like I said, Rukia almost died, Chad almost died, Ikaku almost died. And while the trigger wasn't pulled, there wasn't a main cast member that died during this segment. The fact that it felt like they would, the gravity of this segment, it made me love the Arrancar arc so much. Everybody had their backs to the wall against Grimmjow and his Arrancars. Toshiro, Renji, and Rangiku were all struggling at first. Even Ichigo was going up against Grimmjow and he was getting his ass beat. It felt like, how is Ichigo gonna overcome this? How is Ichigo gonna get stronger than Grimmjow? And eventually he did, because we know that Ichigo is the GOAT. But the vibe and the seriousness of this segment of the Arrancar arc, it's unmatched. The closest thing would probably be 1000 Year Blood War Part 1 in the first couple episodes when the Quincy's are invading and everybody looks like they're dying and they can't keep up with the Quincy's. That is the closest thing to this doomsday ambiance that was created here in the Arrancar arc. This is around the time where I really fell in love with Bleach and I started binging it bad. I loved it during the Soul Society arc, but this is my worst binge. I watched 30 episodes in a day during the Arrancar arc, and the Arrancar arc is far too long for me to only have one moment that made me fall in love with it, because come on, it's peak. Like I already said, the 3 episodes where Ichigo fought Ulquiorra is still some of the best anime that I've ever watched in my life. Those are some of the best episodes. You want to talk about doomsday? You want to talk about Grimmjow? No, Ulquiorra was the real doomsday. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Ulquiorra was whooping Ichigo's ass when he awakened. To go into a second awakening once you're already whooping his ass, to go beyond ass whooping, brother, I thought it was so over. I'm like, Ichigo's gonna die, and he did. This is the only character to kill Ichigo twice, and to this day, Vasto Lorde Ichigo is one of the coolest transformations that I've seen in any anime. Ichigo turning the tables. Now he's the one who's whooping Ulquiorra's ass, even though he's in Segunda Etapa. When he used Sonido, everything about this fight was crazy. This is my favorite fight in the entire series, probably. Maybe Ichigo versus Kenpachi, Ichigo versus Byakuya, Ichigo versus Ulquiorra. So peak. You can't go wrong with Bleach. By this time, I was already 100% sold on Bleach, alright? There was no more convincing me. I didn't need to fall in love anymore. It was over. They hooked me. By the end of the Ulquiorra fight, I was already ready to say Bleach is in my top 3. I'm pretty sure it was in my top 3 after the Ulquiorra fight. It was some of the greatest action I'd seen in my life. And then we get to Ichigo versus Aizen. Dangai Ichigo, still one of the coolest versions of Ichigo. Is that not the coolest version of Ichigo? Well, whatever. Anyways, when I saw this, I thought Aizen was a little bit stupid for destroying the cleaner. I said that in my Arrancar arc video. Aizen, why would you destroy the cleaner? And then people educated me in the comment section, because otherwise this would have flown over my head on my first watch of Bleach. The Hogyoku is what I forgot. The Hogyoku, manifest your desires. What has Aizen been doing throughout all of Bleach? He's practically been raising Ichigo this whole time. Let me chill. But seriously, y'all told me in the comment section of that video the Hogyoku manifested Aizen's desire for an equal. That was like a mind-blowing revelation. I don't think I would have caught that on my first watch of Bleach. I definitely wouldn't have. So I'm glad that y'all told me about that, because now I understand it, and now I don't think Aizen is stupid. I actually think the writing is peak. And not only the writing, but the entire fight, the entire setup to Ichigo versus Aizen. It felt like, man, this is what I've been waiting for since the Soul Society arc. That fight right there felt like the end game of Bleach OG, even though there was the Fullbringer arc that came after it. And I like the Fullbringer arc. I don't want people saying, oh, you didn't like the Fullbringer. I did like the I loved it. But Ichigo versus Aizen, it still feels like that is the culmination of everything that happened in OG Bleach. Still some of my favorite transformations in that fight. Ichigo being able to keep up with Aizen, who just 2 arcs ago stopped his blade with a finger. It was, oh my god, dude, so peak. And then Urahara coming out to put the finishing touches and ensure that Aizen loses after the entire chess match that we just saw from episode 1, the chess match that spans beyond episode 1, beyond the birth of Ichigo. It was the perfect conclusion to all of that. I don't even know if I want to say it's one of my favorite. There's so many good fights in Bleach that it's hard for me to sit here and make like a definitive order, but it's up there. It's up there. And now the moment that I loved in the Fullbringer arc. Again, by this time I was already completely wrapped up in Bleach. I already decided, look, Bleach is one of the greatest. But I've talked about the first arc, I've talked about Soul Society, the Arrancar saga, so I need to have a moment that I love from the Fullbringer arc at the very least. Some of y'all might not know, the Fullbringer arc was actually one of my least viewed videos, so I feel like people genuinely don't know that one of my favorite moments in the entire series comes from the Fullbringer arc. A top 5 moment in all of Bleach, at least OG, because I still need to think about 1,000 Year Blood War. Blade is Me is just the perfect episode. But anyways, one of my favorite moments in all of Bleach is when Ichigo works his ass off to get powers back. Remember, he lost his powers in his battle with Aizen. He's powerless now, and then Ichigo sees that his friends are in danger. Remember, his goal is to protect the people that he loves, the people around him. People say, oh, well, that's not a goal. Those people are dumb. You don't listen to people like that. You're an idiot. But anyways, after Ichigo works his ass off to get his powers back and Ginjo takes them and Ichigo breaks down, after everything that he's been through in the Fullbringer arc, after Tsukishima has inserted himself into the memory of all of his friends, after he's basically gaslighting his friends into thinking that Ichigo's a bad guy, and after training with Ginjo and the Fullbringers to get backstabbed by Ginjo himself and Ginjo take his powers, rendering him powerless once again after all the hard work that he put in, after everything, to see Ichigo demand Ginjo give him his powers back, it was actually one of the hardest hitting scenes in all of Bleach in my opinion. The Fullbringer arc might not have like the highs, the super action of like the Arrancar, the Soul Society, but that moment, that scene where Ichigo give me back my powers, heart-wrenching. It one of the heaviest scenes in all of Bleach, and I love it for that. But again, by this time I was already enamored with Bleach. I already decided, look, Bleach is awesome, so I didn't need to be convinced any further. This was just a cherry on top. And you want to talk about a cherry on top? 1,000 Year Blood War. Now, I said I wouldn't talk about 1,000 Year Blood War that much because, come on, I already made 3 different videos on 1,000 Year Blood War not too long ago. I feel like I've already talked about all these moments quite recently, and I was already in love with Bleach by this time, so there was no need to convince me like I already said. But come on, I gotta give some shout outs. The first moment, come on, if this isn't one of your favorite moments in all of Bleach, what are you doing? When Byakuya tells Ichigo he needs to protect the Soul Society. Come on, bro, I've seen that manga panel. I've seen it. The manga panel was amazing. The anime adaptation was amazing. Come on, like, how can you not love that moment? That entire episode was one of the best episodes in all of Bleach, alongside The Blade Is Me. And I can't even point out a specific moment in The Blade Is Me. I just said, look, rewatch that episode. Please do yourself that favor. I'm gonna rewatch it right now. In my opinion, that's the best episode that Bleach has to offer by far. That is the clearest cut 10 out of 10 episode you will ever see in an anime. If I had to shout out a moment from Cour 2, off the top of my head, I would probably say Kenpachi versus Gremin. Cour 2 wasn't as narrative based as Cour 1 was, or as Cour 3 was, which is why it's my least favorite of the 1,000 Year Blood War cours, but still, peak, come on. The worst 1,000 Year Blood War cour is better than some animes, let's be real. And when I think of Cour 2, there's a couple stuff that comes to mind. I would say the runner-up is Rukia and her Bankai. Oh my god. Cinema. But it's gotta be Kenpachi versus Gremin in my opinion. That fight was just pure action, and Kenpachi in that fight was putting belt to ass. Oh my god, it was insane. And I'm one of the people that I'm really more into like the narrative aspect of a fight, like what story is this fight telling. But that's one of the fights where I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna turn my brain off and I'm gonna appreciate Kenpachi beating somebody whose power is imagination. That is the fight I think of when I think of Cour 2. But now to shout out one moment in Cour 3, now that it's over, I gotta say the Nemu episode. That is my favorite episode in Cour 3 by far. Cinematic backstory, cinematic animation, cinematic OST, everything about that episode. Again, it's so close to a 10 out of 10. I would say it's a 10 out of 10. I liked it. It's a 10 out of 10 to me, right? I wouldn't say objectively, but in my opinion, it is. And seeing Nemu die from Mayuri, again, heart-wrenching. And Nemu wasn't even somebody who was like on my radar to care for that much. I didn't think I would care for Nemu that much, but it takes one episode. Kubo needs one episode to tell an amazing story, and he did that in that episode, which is why it's got to be one of my favorite moments in all of Cour 3. And that's it. Those are the moments that made me fall in love with Bleach. Obviously, y'all let me know which moments made y'all fall in love with Bleach as well. And also, please help me get to 10,000 subscribers. I don't usually ask, but YouTube sent me an email and they told me that they're gonna make a special play button just for me for my 10,000 subscribers. It's gonna be made out of cardboard. So if y'all can help me out with that, thank y'all very much. I hope y'all have a great day. Take care, y'all.